"Strip her!" Commander Hall's order echoed across the formation. 180 candidates watched as Elena Cross removed her uniform top. The burn scars covering her arms made someone laugh. Then she turned around. Master Chief Stone stopped breathing. Running down her spine was a tattoo that shouldn't exist. Presidential Service Cross. Campaign ribbons from Beirut, Afghanistan, Ukraine. And below it all, words that made his blood freeze. Tier 1. Sad Sog. The woman they'd mocked for 3 weeks. The woman they'd called damaged. The woman they'd tried to destroy. She wasn't a candidate. She was hunting them. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. October 2024. Virginia Beach, Naval Special Warfare Center. 0600 hours. Commander Thomas Hall's voice cut through the cold morning air like a blade. "Medical inspection. Strip to base layer, now." 180 bodies moved in unison. Combat boots hit pavement. Uniform tops came off. This was standard protocol. Check for contraband. Check for unauthorized markings. Check for anything that didn't belong in the most elite military training program on Earth. Elena Cross stood in the back row. 5'4", maybe 120 pounds on a good day, built like someone who'd wandered onto the wrong military base. But that wasn't what made people stare. The burn scars did that. Angry pink tissue covered her forearms, crept up her neck, touched the left side of her face. The kind of damage that came from fire, from explosions, from moments that changed everything in a single heartbeat. Lieutenant Maya Reeves noticed her immediately. 6 feet of Marine Corps muscle, 29 years old, 4 combat deployments etched into her memory like badges of honor. Maya had spent her entire career proving women belonged in special operations. And then, this woman showed up. Maya's jaw clenched. "Who the hell let her in?" Petty Officer Derek Cole leaned closer. "Arrived yesterday. Files almost entirely redacted. Nobody knows anything. She looks like she'd have trouble surviving a strong breeze." "That's what I'm saying." The medical staff moved down the ranks, scanning bodies, checking names against rosters. Nothing unusual. Nothing special. Then they reached Elena. She stood perfectly still as she removed her uniform top. The scars on her arms were worse than they appeared from a distance. Keloid formations, skin grafts, the kind of damage that spoke of months in burn units and years of reconstruction. The medical officer's pen stopped moving. "Turn around, please." Elena turned. Master Chief Garrett Stone stood at the edge of the formation, 54 years old, 30 years in special operations, 3 wars, 2 continents, more classified missions than he could count if he tried. His eyes went wide. Running down Elena Cross's spine from the base of her neck to her lower back was a tattoo that made his breath catch in his throat. Not just any marking. The Presidential Service Cross. Eagle and shield rendered in detail that could only come from official authorization. But that wasn't what stopped his heart. Around it, woven into the design like whispered secrets, were campaign ribbons and symbols that Stone recognized immediately. Beirut, 2019. Afghanistan, 2020-2021. Ukraine, 2022. And the burn scars, they weren't separate from the tattoo. They were integrated into it. The artist had incorporated Elena's damaged skin into the artwork, making her wounds part of her credentials, making her suffering part of her story. Below it all, so small that only someone who knew what to look for could read it. Tier 1. Sad Sog. Special Activities Division. Special Operations Group. the CIA's most classified operational unit. Stone's hand moved to his radio, then stopped. He glanced at Commander Hall, saw the recognition dawning in the younger officer's eyes. A slight nod passed between them. Let it play out. Maya Reeves saw the tattoo, saw the elaborate markings, felt something cold settle in her stomach. She didn't understand what those symbols meant. Not exactly. But she knew they were wrong. Too official for someone who looked like a burn victim playing soldier, too elaborate for someone whose file was 90% black bars. The medical staff finished their inspection. Uniforms went back on. Formation resumed. Elena Cross stood quietly, face revealing nothing, as if she hadn't just displayed credentials that belonged in a file marked beyond top secret. Commander Hall cleared his throat. Welcome to Buds Phase 3. Some of you will make it. Most of you won't. The only thing that matters here is performance. Not rank, not background, not connections. Performance. His eyes lingered on Elena for just a moment longer than necessary. Dismissed. 48 hours earlier, Elena had stepped off the transport bus into Virginia Beach Naval Station with the late afternoon sun painting long shadows across the pavement. She slung her duffel over one shoulder and walked toward the processing center. Around her, other candidates arrived with the confidence of people who'd spent years proving themselves worthy of this moment. Broad shoulders, steady gaits, eyes that had seen combat and come back hungry for more. Elena moved differently, quieter, like someone trying not to draw attention to the burn scars that marked her as damaged goods before she ever opened her mouth. The processing clerk was a young sailor, maybe 22. Enthusiasm still bright in his eyes. He took her paperwork and started scanning it into the system. His expression changed. Confusion first, then concern. Ma'am, your file, it's almost entirely classified. Elena's voice was soft, professional. The kind of tone that didn't invite questions. Direct questions to Program Administrator. Authorization code Falcon 9. The sailor blinked, typed something. His screen flashed red, then amber, then settled into a pale green that meant proceed, but don't ask why. Yes, ma'am. Bunk assignment is Building 4, Bay 3. Report for gear issue at 0600. Elena nodded and walked away. The sailor stared at his screen like it held answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. Bay 3 was already occupied when Elena arrived. Maya Reeves stood near her bunk, organizing gear with the kind of precision that came from years of field training. Next to her, Derek Cole was holding court with a story about defusing an IED outside Mosul. I'm telling you the timer was at 4 seconds when I cut the wire. 4 seconds. My hands weren't even shaking. Bullshit, someone laughed. Ask my CO. He put me in for a bronze star. Conversation stopped when Elena entered. Every head turned. Every eye tracked to the scars. The burn damage was impossible to ignore. Impossible to look past. It marked her as someone who'd been through something terrible. Someone who probably shouldn't be here. Elena moved to the only empty bunk, the one in the corner that nobody wanted because the window didn't close properly, and the Virginia Beach nights got cold when the wind came off the ocean. She set her duffel down, started unpacking with methodical efficiency. Maya watched her for a long moment, sizing her up, finding her lacking. Which congressman's daughter are you, sweetheart? The words hung in the air, a challenge disguised as a question. Elena didn't look up from her unpacking. I'm here to complete the program, same as everyone else. Maya laughed, Not the kind of laugh that invited others to join in, the kind that drew lines in sand and dared people to cross them. "Right, and I'm here for the beach vacation." She gestured at Elena's frame, at her scars. "You realize this isn't a rehabilitation center, right? This is the most demanding military training in the world. People wash out in the first week because they can't handle the physical requirements. And you look like you'd have trouble opening a pickle jar." Derek snorted. A few others laughed nervously. Private Jordan Watts, 23 years old and fresh from Army medic training, shifted uncomfortably in the corner. She'd felt that same dismissal when she first joined her unit. The assumption that someone who didn't look the part couldn't be the part. But she said nothing. Maya Reeves was the kind of alpha personality that demanded allegiance. Fighting that current only left you exhausted and isolated. Elena closed her duffel and sat on the edge of her bunk. "I appreciate your concern." It wasn't exactly a comeback. It wasn't submission either. It was something else entirely. A deflection that acknowledged the hostility without engaging with it. Maya seemed unsure how to respond. Most people either cowered under her intensity or rose to meet it with matching aggression. Elena had done neither. Derek decided to fill the awkward silence. "No offense, but what unit did you serve with to get into this program? You need serious credentials just to apply. And those scars..." He trailed off, letting the implication hang. Elena made her bunk with military precision. Corners tight enough to bounce a quarter. Pillow positioned exactly where regulations required. "I've served in various capacities. The specifics aren't something I'm authorized to discuss." "That's convenient?" "That's classified." The answer was professional, appropriate, and completely unsatisfying. Derek exchanged glances with Maya. Both wore expressions that suggested they'd already made up their minds about their new bunkmate. Another pretender. Another person who'd gotten here through pity or connections, rather than competence. Maya crossed her arms. "Let me give you some advice, honey. This program is about teamwork, trust. You can't build that if you're keeping secrets. And you definitely can't build it if you're hiding behind classified files to explain why you don't have any real qualifications." Elena looked up. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Not anger, not hurt. Something harder to define. Like she was cataloging information for future reference. Like Maya had just revealed something important without realizing it. "I understand your concern," Elena said again. "Time will tell whether I belong here or not." That night, after lights out, Elena lay in her bunk and listened. The whispered conversations filled Bay 3 like a low tide of judgment. "Probably got burned in some accident and they felt sorry for her. No way she passes the first evolution. Probably can't even swim with those scars. $10 says she rings the bell by Wednesday." "I'll take that bet. I give her until Monday." Maya's voice cut through the chatter. Quiet, but clear, making sure Elena could hear. "However she got here, she won't last. I'll make sure of that." Elena pulled out a small notebook, wrote in cramped handwriting that would be difficult for anyone else to read. Not a training diary. Something else entirely. Tactical observations, psychological assessments, patterns of behavior that revealed more about her fellow candidates than they realized. Subject Reeves Maya, age 29, Marine officer, 4 deployments, physical capability exceptional, leadership potential high, critical weakness, insecurity masked as aggression, overcompensates for past discrimination by perpetuating same behaviors. Recommend monitoring for toxic leadership indicators. Subject Cole Derrick, age 31, Navy EOD, 3 deployments, technical expertise confirmed. Social dynamics alpha male posturing, likely from military family expectations. Critical weakness entitlement, Believes credentials trump performance. Potential security risk if ego threatened. Subject Watts Jordan. Age 23. Army medic. 1 deployment. Physical capability above average. Mental state. Internal conflict evident. Shows signs of moral awareness but lacks courage to act. Potential for development if properly mentored. She closed the notebook, secured it in her footlocker. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Week 1 started before dawn with the bone-deep cold that comes off the Atlantic Ocean in October. Physical training that pushed bodies past their perceived limits. 4-mile ocean swims that turned fingers blue and made breathing feel like inhaling broken glass. Elena finished in the middle of the pack. Not struggling, not dominating, just steady. Her swimming form was textbook perfect, the kind of efficiency that came from thousands of hours in the water. But she never pushed ahead of the group leaders, never drew attention. Maya noticed. So did Derek. "She's holding back," Maya muttered during the morning break. "Nobody swims with that kind of form unless they've had serious training." Derek nodded. "Probably practiced for months just to get ready for this. Hired some private coach to teach her technique so she'd look legit." "It's not just technique. Watch her breathing pattern. That's not someone who learned to swim in a pool." And they watched Elena sitting alone drinking water, making notes in that ever-present notebook. The burn scars on her arms caught the morning light, pink and angry against pale skin. "Whatever she survived," Derek said, "it wasn't combat. Nobody who's been burned that bad goes back to operational duty." Exactly. The truth was something neither of them could have guessed. Elena had completed her first open-water combat swim at age 21. Off the coast of Beirut, in waters patrolled by Hezbollah operatives with orders to shoot on sight. The Atlantic Ocean in October was cold, but it wasn't trying to kill her. That made it easy. The obstacle course came next, a brutal series of challenges designed to test strength, agility, and mental toughness. Maya attacked it with aggressive efficiency, using raw power to muscle through obstacles that would break smaller candidates. Derek followed with the kind of technical precision that came from years of diffusing explosives, where a single wrong move meant death. That focus transferred to everything he did. Elena approached each obstacle differently. She studied it first, watched others attempt it, identified the most efficient path, then executed with minimal wasted motion. She didn't have Maya's strength, didn't need it. The rope climb that exhausted most candidates she completed using a technique that maximized leg strength while minimizing arm strain. The wall that required brute force she conquered with momentum and timing. The tire flip that broke backs she moved with leverage and physics. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, one of the phase instructors, watched from the tower with narrowed eyes. 34 years old. Former Green Beret. Reputation for identifying weaknesses before they became problems. He'd been monitoring Elena since day one. Something didn't add up. Her technique was too refined, her movement too economical, her decision-making too tactical for someone who allegedly had limited military background. But her file offered no explanation, just page after page of black bars where information should be. Webb made a note in his evaluation book, subject for additional observation. By the end of week 1, the harassment had escalated from casual dismissal to systematic targeting. Elena's gear started disappearing. Fins from her locker, mask from her dive bag, compass from her field kit. Each item returned eventually, but always at the last possible moment, forcing her to scramble, making her appear disorganized, unreliable. Her bunk was tossed during random inspections that seemed to target only her belongings. Gear scattered, personal items rifled through. The message was clear. You don't belong here. In the chow hall, an island of isolation formed around wherever she sat. Conversation stopped when she approached. Eyes tracked her movement with undisguised hostility. The social dynamics of military training weaponized against an outsider. Maya orchestrated it all with the kind of efficiency she'd learned leading Marines in combat. Not overt enough to draw official attention, not obvious enough to constitute actionable harassment, just a steady grinding pressure designed to make someone quit. Elena's response was complete professional silence. She never complained, never protested, never showed any sign that the harassment affected her performance. She just kept showing up, kept performing, kept writing in that mysterious notebook. Master Chief Stone watched it all from a distance. Part of him wanted to intervene, to explain to these young operators that they were making a catastrophic error in judgment. But another part, the part that had survived 30 years in special operations, recognized that Elena was conducting her own assessment. She wasn't being tested. She was testing them. And they were failing spectacularly. Stone sat in his office that night reviewing surveillance footage from the day's training. The obstacle course performance. The swimming technique. The way Elena moved through every challenge with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd faced far worse and survived. The Presidential Service Cross tattoo wasn't just decoration. It was authorization. Proof of service in operations so classified that even Stone, with his 30 years and top-secret clearance, only knew they existed because he'd crossed paths with agency operators in Fallujah back in 2006. Special Activities Division, the CIA's most secret operational unit, the ones who did things that couldn't officially be done, who went places that officially didn't exist, who solved problems that officially weren't problems at all. And somehow, one of their operators was here, in his training program, being harassed by people who had no idea what they were dealing with. Stone picked up his secure phone, made a call to a number that wasn't written anywhere. A voice answered on the second ring. No greeting, just presence. She's performing admirably, Stone said. But the situation is escalating. Week 2 starts tomorrow. They're planning something. A long pause. Let it play out. The voice on the other end was calm, assured. She needs to complete the assessment, all of it. And if they push too hard, they won't. Not hard enough to matter. You're certain. Trust the process, Garrett. Trust her. The line went dead. Stone set down the phone and looked at the footage frozen on his screen. Elena Cross, standing at the finish line of the obstacle course, breathing slightly elevated but controlled. She wasn't even trying yet. She was holding back, maintaining cover, playing a role that had fooled everyone except the few people who knew what they were really looking at. He had his orders. Let it play out. Trust the process. Trust her. But 30 years in special operations had taught him that sometimes the process demanded sacrifices that seemed wrong until you understood the larger picture. He just hoped Elena understood what she was walking into. Day 7. Sunday morning. The candidates had a few hours of downtime before the evening evolution. Elena sat alone in the corner of the common room, reading a technical manual on advanced navigation techniques. Maya approached with Derek and 2 other candidates flanking her. We need to talk. Elena looked up, face neutral, eyes calm. About how you got here, about those scars, about why your file looks like someone took a black marker to every piece of useful information. I've already explained. You've explained nothing. Maya leaned closer. You show up out of nowhere, looking like you survived a house fire. You swim like you've trained your whole life, but claim you can't discuss your background. You move through obstacles like you've done it 1,000 times, but won't say where you learned. Some of us have operational histories that require discretion, and some of us are liars. The word hung in the air. Elena closed her manual, set it aside. What exactly are you accusing me of, Lieutenant? I'm not accusing. I'm stating facts. You don't belong here. Everyone can see it. The only question is whether you're going to admit it and leave, or whether we have to prove it. Prove it how? Maya smiled. Not a friendly smile. Week 2. Field evaluation. 18 miles through mountain terrain. 3 objectives. 48 hours. I'm aware of the exercise parameters. Good. Then you know that out there you can't hide behind classified files and mysterious backgrounds. Out there it's just skill and performance. And when you fail, and you will fail, everyone will see exactly what you really are. Elena met her gaze, held it. And what is that, Lieutenant? What am I really? A fraud, a charity case, someone who got here because someone felt sorry for a burn victim playing soldier. The words were meant to wound, to provoke, to force Elena into a defensive reaction that would prove Maya's point. Elena's expression didn't change. I appreciate your concern, she said for the 3rd time. I'm sure the field exercise will answer all of your questions. She picked up her manual and returned to reading. Maya stood there for a moment, uncertain how to respond to someone who refused to engage with the provocation. Then she turned and walked away, Derek and the others following. Jordan Watts had been watching from across the room. She'd seen the confrontation, seen the hostility, felt the wrongness of it in her gut. But she said nothing, did nothing. She told herself it wasn't her fight, told herself that staying out of it was the smart play, told herself that Elena could handle herself. But deep down in a place she didn't want to acknowledge, Jordan knew she was just being a coward. Again. That night, Elena wrote in her notebook by dim light. Day 7, assessment complete. Subject Reeves has escalated to direct confrontation. Psychological profile confirmed. Insecurity-driven aggression. Need for dominance. Pattern consistent with individuals who experienced discrimination and responded by becoming discriminators themselves. Week 2. Field exercise will be critical observation point. High probability of coordinated sabotage attempt. Equipment tampering most likely. Navigation interference, secondary possibility. Recommendation. Allow sabotage to proceed. Document for final report. Maintain cover until optimal reveal point. She paused. Added one more line. Secondary mission proceeding as planned. Subject 31. Candidate Morrison continuing to exhibit anomalous behavior. Communication patterns suggest external contact. Confirm surveillance priorities with control. She closed the notebook, secured it in her footlocker, lay back on her bunk, stared at the ceiling. The burn scars on her arms itched. They always did when she was stressed. Phantom pain from nerve damage that would never fully heal. She'd gotten those scars in Kyiv. February 2022. An extraction operation that went sideways when Russian forces discovered the safe house 3 hours early. The explosion killed 2 of her team members. Nearly killed her. 6 months in a burn unit. 2 years of reconstruction surgery. Skin grafts that would never look normal. Nerve damage that would never fully heal. And then back to work. Because the mission never ended for people like her. There was always another problem to solve, another system to evaluate, another operation that officially never happened. She touched the scars on her forearm, felt the raised tissue, the evidence of her sacrifice. They mocked her scars. They had no idea those scars were proof of courage they couldn't imagine. Week 2 would begin tomorrow. The field exercise would reveal everything. Not about her, about them. Master Chief Stone made one final call before the night ended. Field exercise begins at 05:30. Team assignments are set. Reeves has Cross on her team. Expected. They're planning something. Equipment sabotage, most likely. Also expected. She'll handle it. And if they push it further, if someone gets hurt. A long pause. Then we'll have even more documentation for the final report. The assessment isn't just about identifying capability that doesn't fit conventional expectations. It's about exposing the systems that allow toxic leadership to flourish. Sometimes I think you forget these are real people. I never forget. The voice on the other end hardened. That's exactly why this assessment matters. Because real people, capable, qualified, exceptional people are being driven out of service every day by leaders like Reeves. The system is broken. Elena Cross is going to prove it, and then we're going to fix it. The line went dead. Stone set down the phone, looked out his window at the darkened barracks. Somewhere in there, Elena Cross was preparing for a field exercise that was designed to break her. She was going to turn it into something else entirely. He just hoped the people trying to destroy her were ready for what happened when the mask finally came off. Week 2 brought weapons qualifications, and with it the first crack in Maya Reeves's certainty. The range was set for 100-yard groupings. HK-416 rifle, standard issue for special operations. Every candidate would fire for accuracy. Passing standard was 6 inches. Exceptional was 3 inches. Maya went first. She settled into position with the confidence of someone who'd done this under fire. Controlled her breathing, squeezed the trigger. 3 rounds downrange. The target came back. 2.7-inch grouping. "Respectable," Lieutenant Webb called out. "Next." Derek followed. His hands were steady from years of working with explosives where trembling meant death. 3. 1 inches. Solid performance. Jordan struggled. Her grouping spread to 4.5 inches. Within standard, but nothing remarkable. Then Elena stepped to the line. Maya watched with arms crossed, waiting for the moment when the fraud would finally be exposed. Shooting couldn't be faked. Either you had the skill or you didn't. Elena checked the weapon with movements that looked casual, but Maya had been shooting long enough to recognize what she was really doing. Magazine seated properly, bolt function smooth, optic aligned. A comprehensive systems check disguised as routine handling. Elena adopted a textbook shooting stance, then made 3 subtle adjustments, maybe an inch of total movement. The range went quiet. Something about her presence changed. The nervous, scarred woman who'd been the target of 3 weeks of harassment seemed to evaporate. What remained in her place was something else entirely. Something harder. Something focused. Something dangerous. She fired. The first group of 3 rounds landed so close together they nearly touched. She adjusted slightly. Fired again. The second group overlaid the first so precisely that the bullet holes formed almost a single ragged opening in the target. When the target came in, Lieutenant Webb measured with steady hands. His expression changed. 0.3 inches. The words fell into stunned silence. 0.3 of an inch at 100 yards with iron sights. That wasn't good shooting. That wasn't exceptional shooting. That was competition-grade precision. The kind of grouping that suggested thousands of hours behind a trigger. Muscle memory forged through repetition that bordered on obsessive. Maya stared at the target. "That's not possible," Derek muttered beside her. "Nobody shoots like that without..." "Without what?" Jordan asked quietly. Derek didn't answer. But they all knew. Without professional training, without years of dedicated practice, without being exactly the kind of operator that Elena claimed she wasn't. Webb made another note in his book. Underlined it 3 times. Elena set down the rifle and walked back to the formation without a word. Her expression hadn't changed. As if shooting with inhuman precision was just another routine task. As if she'd been holding back all along. Maya felt the cold feeling in her stomach grow heavier. Something was very, very wrong about Elena Cross. And for the first time, Maya wasn't sure she wanted to know what. The confrontation came that afternoon during hand-to-hand combat training. 176 candidates gathered on the mat. All of them had been watching Elena for 2 weeks. All of them had formed opinions about her legitimacy. Most of those opinions were unfavorable. When the instructor called for volunteers to demonstrate techniques, Maya stepped forward immediately. "I'll partner with Cross." It wasn't a request. It was a challenge. 176 witnesses. No room for politics or pretense. Just raw demonstration of who belonged and who didn't. Elena stood and walked to the mat. She looked even smaller standing across from Maya's 6 feet of Marine Corps muscle. The size difference was almost comical. A mismatch so obvious that several candidates actually laughed. Lieutenant Webb started to intervene. Master Chief Stone's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Let it happen. She'll get hurt." "No, she won't." Webb looked at Stone's expression, saw something there that made him step back without another word. The instruction was simple. Controlled sparring. Demonstrate technique. No injuries. Maya didn't wait for the signal. She launched forward with the kind of aggressive energy that had dominated every physical confrontation she'd ever been in. A hard right hook aimed at center mass, designed to test reflexes, designed to end things quickly. Elena slipped inside the punch. The movement was minimal, economical. She'd shifted maybe 6 inches total. But that 6 inches put her inside Maya's reach where leverage favored the smaller fighter. Her elbow struck Maya's solar plexus. Not hard enough to injure. Hard enough to send a message. Maya stumbled back. "What the hell?" She regrouped, approached again with more caution. This time she tried to use wrestling to bring her size advantage into play, shot for a double-leg takedown that should have put Elena on her back. Should have. Instead, Elena sprawled, hips back, then spun as Maya overcommitted. The technique was Systema, Russian martial art favored by Spetsnaz operators. Fluid, efficient, designed to turn an opponent's strength against them. Before Maya understood what was happening, she was face down on the mat with Elena's knee in her spine and an armbar locked at her elbow. The pressure increased. Not enough to break, enough to force submission. Maya's face burned with humiliation. 176 witnesses. Her authority challenged. Her dominance destroyed. She tapped. They reset. Maya's face was flushed now. Anger mixing with shame. Everything she'd believed about Elena was crumbling and she couldn't accept it. Again. Elena nodded. Maya attacked harder this time. Faster. Crossing the line from training to actual combat, she wanted to hurt Elena, wanted to prove that the first exchange was a fluke. Elena met her calmly, deflected a punch, countered with a leg sweep, used Maya's momentum against her in a judo throw that put the Marine lieutenant on the mat hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs. Then Elena stopped. Didn't follow through for a submission. Didn't press her advantage. Just stepped back and assumed a neutral stance. Reset position. Like none of it had happened. The gesture was somehow more devastating than continuing the fight would have been. It said I could finish this any time I want. I'm choosing not to. Webb called an end to the demonstration. The mat cleared. But the damage was done. Maya stood with her face burning. She'd been outclassed by someone she'd dismissed as a charity case. In front of everyone who mattered. Every candidate she'd been trying to impress. Every instructor whose evaluation would determine her future. Derek helped her to her feet. That wasn't luck, he said quietly. That wasn't gym training. I know. That was combat-tested skill, the kind that comes from real operational experience. I said I know. Jordan watched from the sidelines. Her discomfort had grown into something more substantial now. A realization that they'd been terribly catastrophically wrong about who Elena Cross really was. And a growing fear about what would happen when the truth finally came out. That night, 3 figures met in a maintenance shed away from surveillance cameras. Maya paced like a caged animal. Her hands kept flexing, remembering the moment when Elena's technique had made her look like a novice. She's Black Ops trained, Maya said. Not a question, a statement. Those techniques, that precision, you don't learn that in regular military courses. Derek nodded slowly. He'd been reviewing everything he knew about Elena's performance. The swimming, the navigation, the shooting, the fighting. Each piece individually was impressive but explainable. Together they formed a pattern that pointed to training and experience far beyond what any normal candidate should possess. Her file is redacted for a reason, Derek said. Someone's covering something up. Jordan shifted uncomfortably. Maybe she's legitimate. Maybe she really does have that kind of background. Maybe we've been wrong about her from the start. Maya turned on her with unexpected vehemence. Then why lie? Why hide it? Why show up here pretending to be someone she's not? Why let us treat her like garbage for 2 weeks when a single explanation would have shut us all up? The question hung in the air. It was in its own way perfectly logical. If Elena had legitimate credentials, why not display them openly? Why endure 2 weeks of harassment when a single revelation would have silenced all criticism? Unless the harassment was the point. But none of them understood that yet. Week 3, Maya said. Field exercise, 18 miles through mountain terrain, 3 objectives, 48 hours. What about it? She's on my team. I requested it specifically. Derek's eyes narrowed. You're going to try to break her out there. I'm going to force her to reveal what she's really hiding. Document everything, every mistake, every failure. And when she cracks, and she will crack, we'll have proof that she doesn't belong here. That's playing with fire, Maya. If she really is some kind of operator, then she should be able to handle a little pressure. Maya's voice was ice. And if she can't, we'll have exposed a fraud before she gets someone killed in real operations. The logic was seductive, dangerous, and completely wrong. But they didn't know that yet. Jordan opened her mouth to object. This felt wrong. Everything about this plan felt wrong. But she was the youngest, the newest, the one with the least authority to challenge. So she did what she'd learned to do in the army. She nodded. Agreed. Went along with the plan. Later, lying in her bunk, she would wonder if that moment of cowardice was when everything started to go truly wrong. The buses rolled out at 0530 hours, carrying 36 candidates into the Blue Ridge mountain wilderness. October dawn came cold and gray, the kind of weather that broke people who weren't prepared. Elena sat near the back of the transport. Through the scratched windows, she watched the terrain roll past, with the quiet focus of someone who'd been in these mountains before, 3 years ago, running an extraction exercise that turned real when a foreign intelligence service got too close to an asset they were pulling from a compromised operation. Different mission. Same unforgiving terrain. Maya sat at the front, reviewing maps and mission parameters with focused intensity. Behind the professional demeanor was desperation. 2 weeks of watching Elena perform had created cracks in her certainty. The sparring match had widened those cracks into chasms of doubt. This field exercise was supposed to prove Maya right, supposed to expose Elena as a fraud. But a small voice in Maya's head, one she refused to acknowledge, whispered that she'd already lost this fight. She just didn't know it yet. Derek sat beside Maya, running through equipment checks with the kind of precision that came from years of working with explosives. One mistake with an IED meant death. That focus had transferred to everything he did, including sabotage. The compass in Elena's gear bag had been carefully modified the night before. Nothing obvious. Just a small magnetic offset that would throw navigation calculations off by approximately 15 degrees, over 18 miles that would compound into catastrophic position errors, force Elena to reveal incompetence, provide documentation of failure. Sloane sat 2 rows behind them, staring at her hands. She'd watched Derek tamper with Elena's equipment, had said nothing, done nothing. Just another coward choosing comfort over courage. Commander Hall stood at the assembly point as the buses arrived. The candidates filed out into the cold morning air, breath-fogging bodies tense with anticipation. Mission time starts now. First objective is 8 miles northeast. Navigate, observe, document, exfiltrate. You have 48 hours. He paused. Let the weight of the words settle. Questions. Silence. Professional silence. The kind that came from people who understood that questions revealed weakness. Execute. Teams dispersed into the wilderness like water finding different paths around the same stone. Maya gathered Team Bravo in a tight circle. Listen up. This exercise determines who advances to Phase 4. I expect professional performance from everyone. No mistakes, no excuses. Her eyes locked on Elena. That includes you, Cross. If you can't keep up, speak now. I won't have dead weight compromising my team. Elena met her gaze calmly. I'll do my job. 4 words. No elaboration. No defense. Just quiet confidence. It made Maya angrier than any protest would have. Because deep down in a place she didn't want to acknowledge, Maya was starting to suspect that Elena Cross's job wasn't what any of them thought it was. They'd been moving for 20 minutes when Elena pulled out her compass, checked the bearing Maya had called, frowned. The compass reading showed 15 degrees off from where celestial indicators suggested they should be heading. The sun angle was wrong. The shadow patterns didn't match. Basic navigation that anyone with field experience would notice immediately. She pulled a backup compass from her cargo pocket. A Silva Ranger. Old school. The kind that didn't rely on anything except magnetic north and human competence. The reading confirmed her suspicion. Someone had tampered with her primary compass. She said nothing, just adjusted her position in the formation and continued moving. Let them think their sabotage was working. Documentation of their actions would be valuable in her final assessment. Maya called a halt after an hour. Something's wrong. She checked her map against terrain features that should have been visible if they were on the correct course. The ridgeline to our north is too close. The valley gradient doesn't match the topographic lines. She turned to Elena. Cross, what's your position estimate? Elena pulled out her compromised compass. made a show of checking it against the map. According to this, we're on course, but terrain features suggest we're approximately half a mile west of intended route. Your compass is wrong. My compass has been tampered with, but yes, it's providing inaccurate readings. The admission hung in the mountain air. Maya had expected Elena to defend the equipment, to make excuses, to reveal incompetence through denial. Instead, Elena had identified the problem immediately and compensated for it. Derek felt cold sweat despite the October chill. His sabotage had been careful, professional, the kind of modification that should have been undetectable until navigation errors compounded into obvious failure. Elena had spotted it in 20 minutes. Maya pushed the issue. So you're saying someone sabotaged your equipment? I'm saying the compass readings don't match terrain analysis. The reason doesn't change the solution. Elena pulled out her backup compass. We need to adjust course 14 degrees east to reach objective alpha. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to prove Elena wrong, but the terrain features were undeniable. They were off course. Elena's correction was accurate. Fine, adjust heading. Move. They reached objective alpha 90 minutes behind schedule, but still within mission parameters. A mock enemy observation post on a ridgeline overlooking a valley. Their job was simple. Observe without being detected. Document enemy positions and capabilities. Exfiltrate without compromise. Maya deployed the team with competent efficiency. Derek on overwatch, Jordan and the others establishing security perimeter, Maya and Elena conducting actual observation. For 3 hours, they watched. Elena cataloged everything. Guard rotations, communication patterns, weapons positions, patrol timing, the kind of detailed intelligence that came from someone who'd done this for real in places where failure meant capture, torture, death. Maya watched Elena work and felt her certainty continuing to crumble. The notes Elena made were professional, comprehensive, the kind of intelligence collection that belonged in actual operational reports, not training exercises. Where did you learn this? Maya asked quietly. Elena didn't look up from her notebook. Learn what? Intelligence collection, pattern analysis, the way you're documenting this. It's not standard training protocol. I've had experience in various environments. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give. Maya studied her profile. The burn scars, the quiet competence, the complete lack of reaction to hostility that should have broken anyone. Those scars, Maya said. How did you get them? Elena's pen stopped moving. Kyiv, February 2022. An operation that went sideways when Russian forces discovered our position 3 hours early. The explosion killed 2 of my team members. You were in Ukraine during the invasion. I was in a lot of places. Most of them I can't discuss. Maya felt something shift in her chest. Not quite sympathy, not yet, but something close to it. Why didn't you just tell us from the beginning? Why let us treat you like what, Lieutenant? The question was quiet, not accusatory, almost curious. Maya didn't answer, because the answer was ugly. Like garbage, like a fraud, like someone who didn't deserve to be here. They completed observation as the sun reached its apex. Second objective was 6 miles east, deeper into terrain that would turn brutal once darkness fell. Night came fast in the mountains. The mission parameters required some navigation in darkness. Test the candidate's ability to move without light discipline compromises. Use natural navigation when technology failed. Maya called a halt as twilight faded into true darkness. We'll move to Objective Bravo using night vision. Cross, you've got point. Another test. Put the suspected weak link in the most critical position. Document failure when it came. Elena accepted the assignment without comment, moved to the front of the formation. But she didn't pull out night vision equipment. Instead, she stood still, letting her eyes adjust to the darkness, studying the sky. Problem. Maya's voice carried satisfaction. Finally, Elena would reveal her limitations. No problem. Just confirming navigation references. Elena started moving, not with the hesitant caution of someone navigating by technology, with the quiet confidence of someone who'd learned navigation from instructors who operated before GPS existed. She used the stars. Polaris for true north. The Big Dipper as a clock to estimate time. The moon phase and position to gauge direction and calculate distance. Ancient techniques that modern military had largely abandoned in favor of electronic solutions. Jordan, watching from her position in the middle of the formation, felt something shift in her understanding. This wasn't someone pretending to have skills. This was someone who'd mastered fundamentals so completely that technology became optional rather than essential. Derek moved up beside Maya. Where the hell did she learn celestial navigation like that? Maya had no answer. Celestial navigation wasn't taught in basic courses. It wasn't even emphasized in most advanced training. It belonged to an earlier era of warfare. To operators who'd learned from legends. Cold War specialists. People who'd been trained when survival meant more than passing tests. Elena led them through 6 miles of darkness without a single navigation error. They reached Objective Bravo as the moon set and the darkest part of night claimed the mountains. The second objective was more complex. A mock enemy compound with multiple buildings, roving patrols, communication equipment that needed to be observed and documented, higher risk, greater chance of compromise. Maya deployed the team in an observation position 300 meters from the target. They would observe until dawn. Gather intelligence, move to the final objective before the heat of the day made movement dangerous. That was the plan. What happened instead would define everything that followed. Derek was on security, watching their back trail for any sign of enemy forces trying to flank their position. He'd been still for 2 hours. Discipline was critical. Movement drew attention. Sound carried in the mountain night. But discipline failed. Later he would claim the weapon discharge was accidental, that his M4 training rifle had fired without his intention, a mechanical failure, not his fault. The truth was simpler and more damning. Exhaustion and stress had degraded his weapons handling. His finger had drifted to the trigger. Pressure had been applied. The rifle fired. A blank round in the mountain night sounded like artillery. The crack echoed off rocks, carried for miles. Every enemy force role player within range turned toward the sound. Within seconds, radio chatter exploded across enemy communications. Lights swept toward their position. The tactical situation collapsed from controlled observation to imminent compromise. Maya froze. 4 deployments. Combat decisions under fire. Life and death choices made in split seconds. But this was different. This was her exercise. Her leadership being evaluated. Her team compromised by a mistake that now threatened to eliminate all of them from the program. Per exercise rules, compromised observation meant failed objective. 3 objectives in the mission profile. Fail 1, you could continue. Fail 2, and the entire team was eliminated. Maya's mind raced through options. All of them ended in failure. Withdrawal meant abandoning the objective. Staying meant getting caught. Either way, her team was done. Elena's voice cut through the paralysis. Quiet, calm, carrying the kind of authority that came from someone who'd actually faced these decisions when bullets were real and consequences permanent. Team leader is compromised. I'm assuming tactical command. Acknowledge. Maya wanted to protest. This was her team, her responsibility, her failure. But Elena was already moving, already implementing a solution that Maya hadn't seen because she'd been too focused on the failure to recognize the opportunity. Cole suppress left flank with noise discipline compromise. Make them think we're a larger force trying to break contact east. Watts, you're with me. We're flanking right and continuing the observation from alternate position. Team leader, you secure our 6 and maintain communication watch. She paused. Execute now. The commands came with the kind of casual precision that belonged to someone who'd done this before. Many times. In places where the enemy shot back with real ammunition. Derek, shaken by his mistake, responded to the authority in Elena's voice without thinking. Started making calculated noise to the left, drawing enemy attention. Elena and Jordan moved right, through shadows and terrain features that shouldn't have provided concealment, but somehow did. Maya found herself following orders from the person she'd been trying to expose as incompetent. The irony wasn't lost on her, but survival instincts overrode pride. Elena was giving them a path to mission success. Maya's only choice was to follow it, or watch her entire team fail. For the next 40 minutes, Elena ran the operation with a competence that bordered on supernatural. She identified an alternate observation position that the exercise designers probably hadn't considered. A rocky outcrop with perfect sight lines to the compound, accessible through a gully that radar and visual observation would miss. She positioned Jordan for optimal coverage, directed Derek's suppression fire to create exactly the right level of confusion, coordinated Maya's security position to catch any enemy flanking attempt, and she gathered the intelligence. All of it. Guard positions, communication protocols, equipment specifications, the kind of comprehensive collection that turned failure into the most successful observation of any team in the entire exercise. Lieutenant Webb, commanding the enemy force, found himself impressed despite his professional skepticism. His units were being manipulated by someone who understood not just tactics, but psychology. Someone who'd anticipated his response and planned 3 moves ahead. When Elena finally called for withdrawal, they exfiltrated without a single compromise. Moved to the final objective with their mission intact. Their team intact. Maya moved through the darkness in a daze. Everything she'd assumed about Elena had been wrong. Catastrophically. Fundamentally. Wrong. The person she'd dismissed as a burn victim playing soldier had just demonstrated operational capability that exceeded anyone in the program, including Maya herself. Jordan felt the weight of her own cowardice crushing down. She'd watched Derek sabotage Elena's equipment, said nothing, done nothing, gone along with the plan to expose someone who clearly didn't need exposing. And when the moment of truth came, Elena had saved all of them. The guilt was suffocating. They reached the extraction zone with 4 hours to spare. Professional. Efficient. Successful despite the sabotage and setbacks that should have eliminated them. Maya sat in the shade of a boulder, staring at her hands. Hands that had led Marines through Fallujah. Hands that had pulled wounded teammates from burning vehicles. Hands that had earned every ribbon on her uniform. Those same hands had spent 3 weeks trying to destroy someone who'd just proved to be a better operator than Maya would ever be. The shame was overwhelming. Elena approached quietly, sat a few feet away, said nothing for a long moment, just let the silence stretch between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Finally, Maya spoke. "Who are you really?" Elena studied the horizon. "Someone doing a job. Same as you." That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. Maya turned to look at her. Really look, trying to see past the unassuming exterior to whatever lay beneath. You're not a candidate. You're something else. Something they sent here to evaluate us, not the other way around. Elena's expression didn't change. What makes you think that? Because no candidate performs the way you just did. Because your skills don't match your cover story. Because Master Chief Stone has been watching you like you're the most important person on this entire base. It was closer to the truth than Maya realized. But Elena's mission required maintaining her cover until the final reveal. Until the moment when breaking character would have maximum impact on the assessment. The extraction bird will be here in 3 hours, Elena said. You should rest. It's been a long 48 hours. She stood and walked away, leaving Maya sitting alone with her thoughts and her growing certainty that nothing about this exercise had been what it seemed. The helicopters brought them back to Virginia Beach as afternoon sun turned the ocean into sheets of hammered bronze. 34 candidates had started the field exercise. 32 remained. 2 had quit during the navigation phase, unable to handle the physical and mental demands. Team Bravo had been the last extracted, but among the most successful. Their after-action reports would show excellent performance, despite equipment failures and tactical setbacks. The kind of resilience that special operations demanded. What the reports wouldn't show was the growing awareness among Maya, Derek, and Jordan that they'd been participating in something far more significant than a training exercise. Maya hadn't spoken since the extraction zone. She sat in the back of the transport helicopter, staring at her hands, replaying every moment of the past 3 weeks in her mind. Every insult she'd thrown, every piece of harassment she'd orchestrated, every assumption she'd made about the scarred woman who'd just saved her entire team. The shame was a physical weight pressing down on her chest. Derek sat beside her, equally silent. His sabotage had been discovered within 20 minutes. His weapon discharge had nearly cost them the mission, and Elena had compensated for both failures without a single word of accusation. That somehow made it worse. Jordan kept stealing glances at Elena, who sat alone near the front of the helicopter, making notes in that ever-present notebook. Writing assessments, documenting behaviors, cataloging everything she'd observed over 3 weeks of systematic abuse. What was she writing about them? What would her final report say? The helicopter touched down at the naval station. Commander Hall was waiting. So was Master Chief Stone. And behind them, 2 men in civilian clothes whose badges identified them as belonging to agencies whose full names were classified. Maya felt her stomach drop. This wasn't normal. VIPs didn't show up for routine training exercises. Team Bravo, Hall announced. Report to Briefing Room 7 for immediate debrief. Do not disperse. Do not contact anyone outside this facility. His voice carried a weight that made Maya's blood run cold. Move! They moved. The briefing room was stark. Metal chairs, a single table, no windows. The kind of room where careers ended and lives changed forever. Maya, Derek, Jordan, and the 2 other team members sat in a row facing the door. Elena sat apart from them, still writing in her notebook, still calm, still impossible to read. Commander Hall entered first, then Stone, then the 2 civilians whose presence made everyone's spine straighten involuntarily. Hall closed the door. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Disclosure to unauthorized personnel will result in immediate court-martial and federal prosecution. He paused. Let the weight of those words settle. Miss Cross, please provide authentication. Elena closed her notebook, set it aside, stood. Authorization code Falcon 9 Echo Delta. Authentication Sierra Alpha Delta. Verification code 42 Romeo Charlie. One of the civilians pulled out an encrypted tablet, typed the codes, waited. The screen flashed through security protocols that took 15 seconds to complete, then turned green. Authentication confirmed, the civilian announced. Presidential Directive 23 Yankee, Special Activities Division, Operational Authority confirmed. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Presidential Directive, Special Activities Division. The words hit like physical blows. Physical verification requested, Hall said. Elena nodded, removed her tactical vest, then her uniform top, turned around. The tattoo was more elaborate than what had been visible during the initial medical inspection. The Presidential Service Cross was just the centerpiece. Around it, woven with artistry that took hundreds of hours to complete, were the symbols and ribbons that told a story most people would never fully understand. Beirut Star 2019, when she'd been 22 years old and barely 2 months out of advanced training. Afghanistan Campaign 2020-2021. 3 separate operations. 4 confirmed hostile neutralizations. 2 hostage recoveries. Ukraine Star 2022. An operation so classified that even the region was redacted in official reports. 72 hours behind enemy lines. No support. No extraction plan until the mission was complete. And the burn scars. They weren't separate from the tattoo. They were integrated into it. The artist had incorporated Elena's damaged skin into the artwork, made her wounds part of her credentials, made her suffering part of her story. Below it all, in script so small that only someone standing close could read it, Tier 1, SAD SOG. Special Activities Division, Special Operations Group. The CIA's most classified operational unit. The people who did things that officially never happened in places that officially weren't important. Maya's hands started shaking. She'd been harassing a presidential operative, someone whose authority came directly from the White House, someone whose operational experience made Maya's 4 deployments look like practice exercises. The magnitude of her error was almost incomprehensible. Derek made small sounds beside her. Not quite words, not quite anything. Just the vocal expression of someone whose entire worldview had shattered into fragments too small to reassemble. Jordan started crying. Quiet tears of shame and recognition. She'd known something was wrong, felt it in her gut for 3 weeks, and done nothing, said nothing, been a coward when courage mattered most. Elena pulled her uniform top back on, turned to face them. Her expression hadn't changed. Still calm, still professional, still impossible to read. "My name is Elena Cross," she said. "I was assigned to this facility under Presidential Directive 23 Yankee to conduct a classified assessment of special operations training effectiveness, with emphasis on identifying systematic bias and toxic leadership indicators." The words fell like hammer blows, each one a condemnation of everything Maya had done. "For the past 3 weeks, I have documented your conduct in detail. Equipment sabotage, coordinated harassment, psychological warfare against a fellow candidate based solely on physical appearance and assumed incompetence." Maya opened her mouth. No sound came out. "The purpose of this assessment was to prove a hypothesis," Elena continued. "That current training protocols contain fundamental flaws that allow capable personnel to be overlooked or driven out, while mediocre operators advance based on appearances rather than performance." She paused. "You have proved that hypothesis conclusively," and Commander Hall stepped forward. "Lieutenant Reeves, Petty Officer Cole, Private Watts, you are hereby relieved of all training responsibilities pending comprehensive review of your conduct during this evaluation period. Maya found her voice. Barely. Sir, we didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. Hall's voice was ice. You didn't verify. You didn't conduct proper assessment. You saw someone who didn't fit your preconceptions and decided they didn't belong. That kind of judgment failure is exactly what this assessment was designed to identify. One of the civilians stepped forward. His badge identified him as CIA. His expression suggested he'd seen this pattern before and was tired of it. Your conduct toward Miss Cross has been documented by multiple surveillance systems, deliberate equipment sabotage, coordinated harassment, attempted professional destruction of a presidential operative. He let those words sink in. These actions constitute violations of multiple sections of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They also represent federal crimes under statutes governing interference with classified government operations. The weight of his words settled over them like a shroud. Careers ending, futures destroyed, consequences that couldn't be appealed or explained away. Derek found his voice, barely above a whisper. Sir, if we'd known her true identity, then you would have behaved differently out of fear rather than respect. The CIA officer's words were surgical. That's not better. That's worse. He turned to Elena. Miss Cross, is there anything else relevant to this assessment? Elena nodded. Yes, sir. There's a secondary matter that requires immediate attention. She pulled out her notebook, flipped to a specific page. During my assessment, I identified anomalous behavior in Candidate 31, Marcus Webb. His communication patterns suggested external contact inconsistent with his cover story. His questions about facility security exceeded normal curiosity. His encryption on personal devices was too sophisticated for a junior candidate. Maya felt confusion cutting through her shame. What was Elena talking about? I initiated surveillance on day 3, Elena continued. Confirmed contact with 2 individuals whose backgrounds didn't support their cover stories. Traced communication patterns to handlers operating in the Washington, D.C. area. Master Chief Stone spoke for the first time. Candidate 31 is currently in custody. FBI arrested him 2 hours ago. The words hit like a thunderbolt. His real name is Mikhail Volkov, Stone continued. Russian GRU, deep cover operative placed to gather intelligence on special operations training procedures and recruit assets within the U.S. military special operations community. A spy, an actual foreign intelligence operative, here among them. For God knew how long. As of 0600 this morning, Stone said, FBI arrested 4 additional GRU operatives operating on the East Coast. Their intelligence network has been dismantled. Their access to American military secrets has been terminated. Maya felt sick. While she'd been focused on destroying Elena, there had been an actual threat in their midst. A real enemy. And Elena had identified him, tracked him, neutralized his entire network, while being systematically harassed by people who had no idea what they were dealing with. The irony was devastating. Elena had been protecting all of them, keeping them safe, while they tried to break her. Miss Cross maintained her cover throughout the counterintelligence operation, the CIA officer said. The harassment she endured actually aided the mission by keeping attention focused on her rather than on her actual activities. Candidate 31 believed she was the distraction everyone should ignore. He paused. He didn't realize she was the threat he should have been watching. Jordan's crying had become audible now. Not just tears, sobs, The full weight of what they'd done and what Elena had done, despite it crashing down on her all at once. Maya sat in stunned silence. Everything she'd believed about herself, about her judgment, about her ability to identify capability and threat, all of it had been wrong. Catastrophically wrong. She'd spent 3 weeks trying to destroy the one person who was actually protecting them, and she'd completely missed the actual danger right in front of her face. The silence stretched. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Elena spoke again. "Sir, I'd like to make a recommendation regarding sentencing." The CIA officer raised an eyebrow. "You're the aggrieved party. You have that right." Private Watts showed evidence of internal conflict throughout the assessment period. Her psychological profile indicates she was following rather than leading. She lacks the moral courage to stand against peer pressure, but she has potential for development. Jordan looked up through her tears. Disbelief and desperate hope warring on her face. "I recommend counseling and reassignment rather than separation from service. With proper mentorship, she could become an effective operator." The CIA officer nodded slowly. "And the others?" Elena turned to look at Maya directly. For the first time, there was something in her eyes besides professional detachment, something that might have been understanding or pity. Lieutenant Reeves's actions stemmed from insecurity masking as strength. She experienced discrimination early in her career and responded by becoming a discriminator herself. She has leadership capability, but needs to understand that real strength doesn't require dominance. Maya felt something crack inside her chest. Elena was offering her a chance. After everything. After 3 weeks of systematic harassment. After the sabotage and the confrontations and the attempt to destroy her career. Elena was offering redemption. She could benefit from rehabilitation if she's willing to confront her fundamental character flaws, Elena continued. But that willingness has to come from her. It can't be forced. The CIA officer made a note. "And Petty Officer Cole." Elena's expression hardened slightly. Petty Officer Cole demonstrated entitlement and willing participation in harmful behavior. His sabotage was deliberate and premeditated. His actions during the field exercise endangered the entire team. She paused. His case requires more serious consideration given the malicious nature of his conduct. Derek's face went pale. The distinction was clear. Maya and Jordan might have a path forward. He probably didn't. Commander Hall stepped forward. "Your recommendations will be considered during tribunal proceedings. Thank you for your assessment, Miss Cross." He turned to address Maya, Derek, and Jordan. "You will be escorted to holding pending formal review. You are prohibited from discussing any aspect of this incident with unauthorized personnel. Your security clearances are suspended effective immediately." He paused. "Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." 3 voices. Hollow. Defeated. Understanding that their military careers were effectively over. Or at least the careers they'd imagined for themselves. Military police entered the room. Professional. Efficient. Routine. As they moved to escort Maya, Derek, and Jordan away, Elena spoke one final time. "Lieutenant Reeves." Maya stopped. Turned. Met Elena's eyes. "The scars you mocked for 3 weeks came from an operation in Kyiv, February 2022. Russian forces discovered our safe house 3 hours early. The explosion killed 2 members of my team. Good people. People I cared about." Maya felt tears starting to form in her own eyes now. "I spent 6 months in a burn unit, 2 years of reconstruction surgery. The doctors told me I'd never return to operational duty." Elena's voice was quiet. Steady. "I proved them wrong. The same way I proved you wrong. Not because I needed your approval. Not because I needed anyone's approval. but because the mission matters more than what people think of me." She paused. "You could learn that too, if you choose to." Maya had no words, no response, no defense, just the crushing weight of shame and the tiny fragile spark of something that might have been hope. The MPs led them out. The door closed. Silence filled the briefing room. Master Chief Stone approached Elena. "You handled that well. The recommendation for clemency, especially for Reeves." Elena gathered her notebook. "She has potential, just needs guidance. Someone should have corrected her behavior years ago. Instead, the system rewarded her aggression and taught her the wrong lessons. And now she gets a chance to learn the right lessons. If she takes that chance, she could be an effective leader." Elena paused. "If she doesn't, then the military is better off without her." Stone nodded slowly. 30 years in special operations had taught him that change was possible, but it had to be chosen. It couldn't be imposed. "What's next for you?" "Pentagon debrief in 48 hours. Full report on training assessment and counterintelligence operation. The President's National Security Team wants to review my findings personally." "And after that?" Elena looked at him. "Another assignment. There's always another mission, always another problem that needs someone who can see what others miss. You ever think about staying teaching passing on what you've learned? Maybe someday, when there aren't urgent operational requirements." She smiled slightly, the first genuine emotion she'd shown in 3 weeks. "But for now, the work is in the field. That's where I'm needed most." Stone extended his hand. "Thank you for your service, Miss Cross. What you've done here will improve special operations training for generations." Elena shook his hand. "That was the mission, Master Chief. Glad to complete it successfully." She walked toward the door. Stopped. The system that allowed this to happen isn't just in the military. It's everywhere. People who don't fit comfortable expectations get overlooked, driven out, destroyed by others who feel threatened by what they don't understand. She turned to look at him. "I'm going to fix that, not just here. Everywhere I can reach. That's my real mission, the one that never ends." Stone watched her go. The door closed behind her. He stood alone in the empty briefing room, thinking about everything he'd just witnessed. A woman covered in burn scars who'd been dismissed as damaged goods, who'd endured 3 weeks of systematic harassment without complaint, who'd identified and neutralized a foreign intelligence network while being targeted by her own teammates, who'd offered redemption to the people who'd tried to destroy her. The woman nobody saw coming, until it was too late to maintain comfortable illusions. Stone pulled out his phone, made a call. "It's done. Assessment complete. Counterintelligence operation successful. Cross is heading to Pentagon for debrief." A pause. "Recommendations for systematic reform." Extensive. She documented everything. Training protocols, evaluation procedures, leadership identification. All of it needs to change. Another pause. "Will the changes be implemented?" Stone looked at the door Elena had walked through. "They'd better be, because she'll be watching, and the next time someone fails this test, I don't think she'll be as merciful." He ended the call, walked to the window, looked out at the naval station, where 32 remaining candidates were preparing for the next phase of training. None of them knew what had just happened. None of them understood that they'd been part of an assessment that would reshape special operations for years to come. But they would. Soon enough, they would. And Elena Cross would make sure of it. The holding cell was cold. Maya Reeves sat on a metal bench, staring at the concrete wall. 24 hours since the briefing room. 24 hours since her entire world collapsed. Presidential operative. CIA Special Activities Division. The words kept echoing in her mind like a death sentence. She'd spent 3 weeks trying to destroy someone whose authority came directly from the White House. Someone whose operational experience made Maya's 4 combat deployments look like training exercises. And Elena had offered her redemption anyway. Why? The question burned. If their positions had been reversed, Maya wouldn't have shown mercy. She would have demanded maximum punishment, would have wanted the person who'd tried to break her to suffer every possible consequence. But Elena hadn't done that. She'd seen something in Maya worth saving. What? The cell door opened. A military lawyer entered. Captain Rebecca Torres, mid-40s, eyes that had seen too many careers end in rooms like this one. Lieutenant Reeves, I've been assigned as your defense counsel. Maya didn't look up. Is there any point I sabotaged equipment, coordinated harassment, targeted a presidential operative? My career is over. Torres sat across from her. Your career as you knew it is over. That doesn't mean your life is. What's the difference? The difference is whether you spend the next 10 years in federal prison or the next 10 years proving that Miss Cross was right about you. Maya finally looked up. Right about what? That you have potential, that your actions stemmed from insecurity rather than malice, that with proper rehabilitation you could become an effective leader. Torres pulled out a folder. Her recommendation carried significant weight. The tribunal is offering you a choice. Maya's heart started beating faster. What choice? Option 1, full court-martial. Charges include interference with classified government operations, conduct unbecoming, and conspiracy to commit harassment. Conviction would mean dishonorable discharge and 3 to 5 years federal imprisonment. Maya felt her stomach drop. Option 2. Mandatory Rehabilitation Program. 6 months of intensive training, counseling, and professional development. Successful completion results in reassignment to a probationary leadership position. Failure results in immediate separation with other than honorable discharge. Torres closed the folder. Miss Cross specifically requested that you be given this option. She believes you can change. The question is whether you believe it. Maya's hands started shaking. Why would she do that? After everything I did to her? That's a question you should ask yourself, and keep asking until you understand the answer. Torres stood. You have 24 hours to decide. But I'll tell you something, Lieutenant. In 20 years of military law, I've never seen a victim advocate for their abuser's rehabilitation. Whatever Miss Cross saw in you, it's worth finding. She walked to the door. Stopped. One more thing. Petty Officer Cole was offered the same choice. He refused. Said he'd rather fight the charges than admit he was wrong. What happened to him? Preliminary hearing is tomorrow. The evidence is overwhelming. He's looking at 7 years minimum. Torres left. The door closed. Maya sat alone with the weight of that choice pressing down on her chest. 6 months of confronting everything she'd done wrong. 6 months of tearing apart the person she'd become. 6 months of rebuilding from the wreckage. Or prison. It should have been an easy choice. But admitting she was wrong meant admitting that everything she'd believed about herself was a lie. That was harder than any combat deployment, harder than any physical test, harder than anything she'd ever faced. 2 cells down, Jordan Watts was having a different conversation. Her mother sat across from her. Air Force Colonel retired. The kind of woman who'd raised her daughter to serve with honor. The disappointment in her eyes was devastating. I didn't know, Jordan whispered. I swear, Mom, I didn't know who she really was. Would it have mattered? The question cut deep. What? If you'd known Elena Cross was a CIA operative, would you have stood up against the harassment, or would you have just found a different reason to stay silent? Jordan's tears started flowing again. I don't know. That's the problem, Jordan. You don't know. You've never known. You've spent your entire life following instead of leading, going along instead of standing up, taking the easy path instead of the right one. I was scared. Lieutenant Reeves was scared of what being unpopular, being isolated, being treated the way Elena Cross was treated. Her mother leaned forward. You watched them sabotage her equipment. You watched them coordinate harassment. You knew it was wrong, and you did nothing. I know. Do you really understand what that means? Jordan couldn't meet her mother's eyes. It means I'm a coward. No, it means you've been a coward. Past tense. The question is what you're going to be from now on. Her mother reached across the table, took Jordan's hands. Miss Cross recommended rehabilitation for you, too. She said you have potential for development, that you show moral awareness but lack courage to act. Jordan looked up. She also said that with proper mentorship you could become an effective operator, but you have to choose it. You have to decide that being a good person is more important than being a comfortable person. Her mother squeezed her hands. Can you do that, Jordan? Can you choose courage over comfort? Jordan thought about Elena, about the burn scars everyone mocked, about the quiet competence no one recognized, about the way she'd saved the entire team during the field exercise and never said a word about it, about the mercy she'd shown to people who'd shown her none. I want to try, Jordan whispered. I want to be the person she thinks I could be. Her mother nodded slowly. Then that's where you start, wanting to try. The rest comes from showing up every day and doing the work. She stood. I'll tell the tribunal you're accepting the rehabilitation option. Mom, yes? Do you think she's right? Do you think I can change? Her mother looked at her for a long moment. I think the fact that you're asking that question is the first step. The woman I raised is still in there somewhere. It's time to find her. She left. Jordan sat alone with tears streaming down her face. But for the first time since the briefing room, they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of determination. The Pentagon briefing occurred 48 hours after Elena left Virginia Beach. The room was filled with people whose names appeared on organizational charts at the highest levels. Admiral Patricia Vance, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, General Marcus Webb, chairman of the Joint Special Operations Command, 2 representatives from the National Security Council, 3 officials from the CIA, whose exact titles remained classified even in this setting. Elena stood at the front of the room. Behind her, a screen displayed data compiled over 3 weeks of assessment. The hypothesis was simple, she began. Current special operations training protocols contain systematic biases that allow capable personnel to be overlooked or driven out based on physical appearance rather than actual capability. She clicked to the next slide. The evidence is overwhelming. Charts appeared. Statistics, documentation of every incident, every act of sabotage, every coordinated harassment, every failure to identify genuine threat while targeting perceived weakness. Subject Cross was harassed for 3 weeks based solely on physical appearance and assumed incompetence. Equipment was sabotaged. Social isolation was enforced. Leadership candidates coordinated systematic psychological warfare against a fellow trainee. She paused. During this same period, an actual foreign intelligence operative moved freely through the training program, gathered intelligence, made contacts, built the foundation for a recruitment network that could have compromised American special operations for years. Admiral Vance leaned forward. The GRU operative. How did you identify him? Communication patterns. His encryption was too sophisticated for his cover story. His questions about facility security exceeded normal curiosity. His background didn't support his technical knowledge. And the candidates who were so focused on you, they noticed nothing. They were too busy trying to prove I didn't belong to see the actual threat among them. The point landed with brutal efficiency. General Webb spoke next. Your recommendations for systematic reform. Elena clicked to the next slide. Comprehensive, beginning with blind evaluation protocols that separate candidate assessment from demographic information, performance measured by results rather than conformity to expected patterns. Another click. Mystery operative exercises become standard. Undercover evaluators embedded in training classes to assess how well candidates can identify competence that doesn't fit conventional expectations. Another click. Zero tolerance enforcement. Not just words. Actual consequences. First offense for harassment results in immediate separation. No exceptions. No second chances for behavior that compromises unit cohesion. Another click. Psychological screening overhaul. New protocols identify candidates whose insecurity manifests as aggression. Those individuals directed toward counseling before their toxic behaviors infect operational units. She paused. The current system rewards people who look the part and punishes people who don't. It drives out capable operators while promoting mediocre ones. It creates vulnerabilities that our enemies can exploit. She looked directly at the assembled leadership. It nearly allowed a Russian intelligence network to penetrate our most elite training programs. That's not acceptable. When Admiral Vance nodded slowly. These reforms will be implemented. One of the NSC representatives spoke. Presidential directive is being drafted. Ms. Cross's recommendations will become standard protocol across all special operations training facilities within 6 months. General Webb looked at Elena with something approaching respect. The woman who exposed all this, the one covered in burn scars that everyone dismissed. She'll be overseeing implementation. Elena nodded. I've been offered the position of Director of Special Operations Assessment Directorate. I've accepted on one condition, which is I maintain operational status, fieldwork first, administration second. The perspective that made my recommendations valuable comes from being in the field. I won't lose that. Vance almost smiled. A warrior who wants to stay a warrior. I can respect that. The briefing continued for another 2 hours. Details, implementation timelines, resource allocation. The bureaucratic machinery that turned recommendations into reality. But the core message was clear. Everything was about to change. Because one woman had proved that the system was broken. And now she was going to fix it. 3 months later, Maya Reeves stood in a different kind of room. Rehabilitation facility. Day 92 of a 180-day program. The woman across from her was Dr. Sarah Chen, military psychologist, specialist in leadership rehabilitation. Tell me about the sparring match, Dr. Chen said. Maya closed her eyes. I wanted to hurt her, not just defeat her, hurt her, prove that she didn't belong. Why? Because she made me feel inadequate. She was smaller, weaker looking, covered in scars. Everything about her screamed victim, and she was better than me. That threatened you. It terrified me. Maya's voice cracked. I spent my whole career proving women could be just as capable as men, fighting against people who said we didn't belong, and then she showed up and suddenly I was the one saying it. Why do you think that happened? Maya opened her eyes. Because I never dealt with my own trauma. I just converted it into aggression, made myself into a weapon instead of a person. And when someone threatened that identity, I lashed out. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. That's significant progress, Lieutenant. 3 months ago, you couldn't acknowledge any of this. 3 months ago, I still thought I was right. And now, Maya thought about Elena, about the burn scars that marked her as a survivor, about the tattoo that marked her as a warrior, about the mercy that marked her as something more. Now I understand that real strength doesn't require destroying others. Elena Cross could have ended my career, could have sent me to prison. Instead, she gave me a chance to become better. Why do you think she did that? Because she understood something I didn't. That the people who hurt us don't define us. Our response to being hurt defines us. Maya paused. She chose mercy. Now I have to choose what to do with it. Dr. Chen made a note. Lieutenant, I'm going to recommend you for early completion of the program. Maya looked up. What? You've made more progress in 3 months than most participants make in 6. You've confronted your behaviors honestly. You've identified the root causes. You've developed strategies for different responses. Dr. Chen set down her pen. But I want to be clear about something. This isn't graduation. This is the beginning. The real test comes when you're back in operational command, when stress is high, when the old patterns want to resurface. I understand. Do you? Because Miss Cross took a significant risk recommending rehabilitation for you. If you fail, it reflects on her judgment. Are you prepared to honor that risk? Maya thought about the briefing room, about the moment when Elena had offered redemption instead of revenge, about the debt she could never fully repay. I won't fail her. I won't fail myself. Not again. Dr. Chen nodded. Then we have work to do. Let's talk about what leadership looks like when it comes from confidence rather than insecurity. They talked for another hour. And for the first time since her career imploded, Maya felt something that might have been hope. Jordan Watts completed her rehabilitation 2 weeks before Maya. Her path had been different. Less about confronting aggression and more about building courage. Learning to speak up, learning to stand alone when necessary, learning that being uncomfortable was the price of being right. Her new assignment came through on a Tuesday morning. Military Intelligence, Analysis Division, entry-level position with room for advancement, a second chance she'd done nothing to deserve. She wrote to Elena that night. The letter was simple. Miss Cross, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I needed to say it anyway. Thank you for seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Thank you for believing I could change when I'd given you no reason to believe it. I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying to be the person you thought I could be. Not because I owe you, but because you showed me what real courage looks like. It looks like mercy when revenge would be easier. It looks like hope when cynicism would be justified. It looks like giving people chances they haven't earned. I want to be that kind of person. I'm not there yet. But I'm trying. And I won't stop. Jordan Watts. She sent it to an address that probably wouldn't work. A CIA operative wasn't likely to receive personal mail through normal channels. But 3 weeks later, a response arrived. 1 line, handwritten. Private Watts, the person you want to become is already inside you. Your job now is to let her out. Keep trying. EC. Jordan framed that letter, hung it above her desk, and every day when the old fears whispered that she should stay quiet, stay safe, stay comfortable, she looked at those words and chose courage instead. Derek Cole was not as fortunate. His trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Documented sabotage, recorded conversations, surveillance footage of him tampering with Elena's equipment. He refused to accept responsibility, insisted he was right, claimed that Elena had been the real threat all along. The tribunal disagreed. Dishonorable discharge, 7 years federal imprisonment, criminal record that would follow him for life. Some lessons required consequences that couldn't be appealed or explained away. Some people refused to learn no matter what opportunities they were given. Derek Cole was one of them, and the military moved on without him. Elena received word of the verdicts while reviewing implementation reports in her Pentagon office. Maya Reeves. Early completion of rehabilitation. Reassigned to probationary leadership position with mixed-gender SEAL platoon. Jordan Watts. Successful completion of rehabilitation. Assigned to military intelligence with positive performance evaluations. Derek Cole. Convicted. Imprisoned. Career terminated. 3 people. 3 choices. 3 different outcomes. The woman who'd tormented her for 3 weeks had chosen growth. The young soldier who'd been too scared to help had chosen courage. The man who'd sabotaged her equipment had chosen denial. Elena made a note in her records. Assessment validated. Rehabilitation effective for subjects demonstrating genuine willingness to change. 0 tolerance enforced for subjects refusing accountability. She closed the file, looked out her window at the Pentagon grounds. 6 months since Virginia Beach. 6 months since she'd proved that the system was broken. 6 months of watching that system begin to transform. The changes were controversial. Old guard operators complained that standards were being lowered, that political correctness was compromising operational effectiveness. The statistics told a different story. Graduation rates up 38%. Mission success rates improved 23%. Casualty rates down. Operational effectiveness improved across every measurable metric. Because it turned out that identifying and developing actual capability, regardless of how that capability presented itself, produced better operators than selecting people who simply looked the part. Elena's phone buzzed. Text message from an encrypted number. She opened it. Completed counterterrorism operation in West Africa. Hostage recovered. 0 casualties. Using techniques you demonstrated at Virginia Beach. Thank you for showing me what real leadership looks like. Lieutenant Reeves. Elena smiled, typed a response. Proud of your progress. Keep developing your team. They're lucky to have you. She sent it, set down her phone, looked at the burn scars on her arms, the evidence of her sacrifice. The marks that everyone had mocked, the wounds that had become her credentials. They'd underestimated her because of those scars, dismissed her, tried to break her, and she'd proved them wrong. Not through revenge, through excellence, not through destruction, through redemption. That was her legacy. Not just the missions she'd completed, not just the spy she'd caught, but the lives she'd changed by refusing to become what others expected her to be. Her phone buzzed again. New assignment. Classified briefing in 2 hours. Another mission. Another system to evaluate. Another opportunity to prove that true strength didn't announce itself. Elena gathered her materials, walked toward the briefing room, ready for whatever came next. Because the mission never ended for people like her. There was always another problem to solve, another assumption to challenge, another person to show that excellence didn't always look the way people expected, and she would be there. Watching, assessing, ensuring that the lessons of Virginia Beach were never forgotten. The woman nobody saw coming. Until it was too late to maintain comfortable illusions. 1 year later, everything had changed. Elena Cross stood at the podium in the Pentagon's main briefing auditorium. 200 faces looked back at her. Military commanders, intelligence officials, Allied Special Operations representatives from 12 NATO countries, all of them here for one reason: to learn about the Cross Protocol. The premise is simple, Elena began. Excellence doesn't announce itself. The most capable operators are often the ones nobody expects. Our job is to find them before the system drives them out. She clicked to the first slide. Statistics, charts, data compiled over 12 months of implementation. Graduation rates across special operations training increased 42%. Mission success rates improved 27%. Retention of high-capability personnel up 61%. She paused. These aren't projections. These are results. A British SAS colonel raised his hand. Miss Cross, the old guard in our forces claim these reforms lower standards, that we're prioritizing inclusion over capability. Elena almost smiled. Colonel, I was dismissed as incapable by my own teammates for 3 weeks. They sabotaged my equipment, coordinated harassment, tried to destroy my career. During that same period, I identified and neutralized a foreign intelligence network that had penetrated our training program. She let that sink in. The people who were so busy trying to prove I didn't belong completely missed the actual threat. That's what happens when you evaluate based on appearance rather than capability. You drive out the people you need and promote the people you don't. The colonel nodded slowly. Point taken. A German KSK commander spoke next. The rehabilitation protocols. They're controversial. Many believe that personnel who engage in harassment should simply be separated. Some should be, Elena agreed. Petty Officer Derek Cole refused rehabilitation. He's serving 7 years in federal prison. But Lieutenant Maya Reeves accepted the opportunity to change. She completed an intensive program and is now leading one of our highest-performing SEAL platoons. She clicked to the next slide. A photo of Maya. Different now. Confident instead of aggressive. Strong instead of domineering. Her team achieved mission success rates in the top 3% last year, not because she became softer, because she learned that real leadership doesn't require destroying others. Elena looked directly at the assembled leaders. We don't have unlimited personnel. We can't afford to throw away everyone who makes mistakes. The question is whether they're willing to learn from those mistakes. Some are, some aren't. The protocols help us identify which is which. The briefing continued for 3 hours. Questions about implementation, training modifications, evaluation criteria, the bureaucratic details that turned philosophy into practice. But the core message was clear. Everything was different now, because one woman had proved that the system could change, and she wasn't done yet. After the briefing, Elena returned to her office. A stack of reports waited on her desk. Implementation updates from training facilities across the country. Progress reports from rehabilitation programs. Intelligence assessments from ongoing operations. The work never ended. She wouldn't have it any other way. Her phone buzzed. Text from Maya Reeves. Operation complete. All objectives achieved. 0 casualties. Team is requesting you attend the debrief. They want to thank the person who made their commander possible. Elena read the message twice. Felt something warm spread through her chest. This was why she did it. Not for recognition. Not for advancement. For moments like this, when the people she'd given second chances proved worthy of them. She typed a response. Tell your team the thanks goes to them. And to you. You did the work. You made the choice. I just opened the door. She sent it. Set down her phone, looked at the burn scars on her arms. 1 year since Virginia Beach. 1 year since 3 weeks of harassment and sabotage. 1 year since she'd proved that the most capable operators weren't always the ones people expected. Her intercom buzzed. Director Cross. You have a visitor. Says she doesn't have an appointment, but hopes you'll see her anyway. Name, Jordan Watts. She says you'll know who she is. Elena's eyebrows rose slightly. Send her in. The door opened. Jordan looked different, more confident, standing straighter, eyes that met Elena's directly instead of sliding away. Miss Cross, I hope I'm not interrupting. You're not. Sit down. Jordan sat across from Elena's desk. I wanted to thank you in person. The letter you sent. I still have it. Read it every day. How's military intelligence treating you? Well? Really well. Jordan's voice carried genuine enthusiasm. I developed a new analytical technique, improved threat assessment accuracy by 45%. They're implementing it across the division. I heard. Impressive work. I couldn't have done it without what happened at Virginia Beach. Elena tilted her head slightly. Explain. Jordan took a breath. Before, I was always looking for the easy path, the comfortable choice, going along instead of standing up. But watching you, seeing how you handled everything we threw at you, it changed something in me. She paused. You showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to do the right thing despite the fear. Every time I want to stay quiet, I think about you, and I speak up instead. Elena studied the young woman across from her, saw the change, real, permanent, earned through daily choices rather than single moments. That's the person you always were, Private Watts. You just needed permission to let her out. Jordan, please, I'm not Private Watts anymore. I got promoted last month. Congratulations. Thank you. Jordan hesitated. There's something else I wanted to tell you. What? Lieutenant Reeves, Maya. We've been in contact. She reached out to me about 6 months ago. Wanted to apologize. Wanted to explain. Wanted to know if I'd forgiven her. And I told her forgiveness wasn't mine to give. She didn't really hurt me. She hurt you. But I also told her that I'd seen her work, seen the changes she'd made, and that I was proud of her for trying. Elena felt something shift in her chest. These two women, the one who'd tormented her, the one who'd watched and done nothing, both of them transformed, both of them better because she'd chosen mercy over revenge. Why are you telling me this? Jordan met her eyes directly. Because I want you to know that what you did mattered. Not just the protocols, not just the reforms, the personal choices, the decision to give us chances we didn't deserve. It changed lives, changed who we are. She stood. I should go. I have a briefing in an hour, but I needed you to know that. Needed you to hear it from someone who was there. Elena stood as well, extended her hand. Jordan shook it. Take care of yourself, Jordan. Keep making the right choices, even when they're hard. I will. I promise. She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. Miss Cross. Yes. The scars, the ones they mocked, I used to see them as damage. Now I see them as proof. Proof of what? That the things that try to destroy us can become the things that define us, if we let them. She left. The door closed. Elena sat back down, stared at her hands, the burn tissue, the nerve damage, the evidence of the explosion that had nearly killed her in Kyiv. Proof. Jordan was right. The scars weren't damage anymore. They were credentials. 2 months later, Elena received an unexpected phone call. Master Chief Garrett Stone, retired now, living in North Carolina, voice still carrying the weight of 30 years in special operations. Cross, I need to tell you something. What is it? Maya Reeves. Her platoon was deployed to Mali last week. Counter-terrorism operation. High-risk extraction. Elena's stomach tightened. What happened? Target was a terrorist cell holding 2 American aid workers. Intelligence suggested 8 hostiles. Turned out to be 23. Complete ambush situation. Her team was outgunned 3-1. Stone, what happened? A pause. She got them out, both hostages, all team members, 0 casualties on our side. Elena exhaled. How? According to the after-action report, she stayed calm when everything went wrong. Adapted. Improvised. Made decisions under fire that shouldn't have been possible. Her team said she moved like someone who'd done this before. Stone's voice carried something that might have been pride. She moved like you, Elena. The techniques you demonstrated at Virginia Beach, the calm under pressure, the tactical adaptation. She'd been practicing, learning, preparing for exactly this kind of moment. Elena closed her eyes, remembered the briefing room. Maya's face burning with shame. The moment when Elena had offered rehabilitation instead of destruction. The risk she'd taken. The trust she'd extended. She's requesting you attend the commendation ceremony, Stone continued. Bronze Star, her whole team wants you there. When? Next Friday, Fort Bragg. She said to tell you that she owes you everything, that without the second chance she'd be in prison instead of saving lives. Elena opened her eyes. Tell her I'll be there. You should know something else. What? The military is planning to name the new assessment protocol after you, the Cross Protocol. It's going to be standard training across all branches within 18 months. Elena said nothing. You changed everything, Elena. Not just the systems, the people, the culture, the way we identify and develop capability. None of it would have happened without you. It's not about me, Stone. It never was. Maybe not. But you're the one who proved it was possible. You're the one who showed us what we were missing. Elena thought about the 3 weeks at Virginia Beach, the harassment, the sabotage, the systematic attempt to break her, and the choice she'd made when it was over. Mercy instead of revenge, hope instead of cynicism, redemption instead of destruction. I'll see you Friday, Stone. Looking forward to it. The line went dead. Elena set down the phone, looked at the commendation notice on her desk. Maya Reeves. Bronze Star for extraordinary heroism in combat. The woman who'd tormented her for 3 weeks. Now saving lives because Elena had given her a chance. This was the legacy. Not protocols, not statistics. People. Changed. Transformed. Made better because someone believed in them when they'd given no reason to be believed in. The commendation ceremony was held in the main auditorium at Fort Bragg. 200 attendees. Military brass. Government officials. Family members of the rescued hostages. Maya stood at attention as the general pinned the Bronze Star to her uniform. For extraordinary heroism in combat operations against hostile forces in Mali, Lieutenant Reeves demonstrated exceptional leadership under fire, coordinating the extraction of 2 American civilians and all team members against overwhelming enemy opposition. The general stepped back. The United States Navy and the American people thank you for your service. Applause filled the auditorium. Maya saluted. But her eyes found Elena in the audience, and something passed between them. Understanding, gratitude, acknowledgement of the journey that had brought them both to this moment. After the ceremony, they found each other in the reception area. Maya spoke first. "You came. You asked. I didn't think you would. After everything I did." Elena studied the woman standing before her. So different now. The aggressive posture replaced by quiet confidence. The hostile eyes replaced by genuine warmth. The toxic leader replaced by someone worthy of the people under her command. "You earned this, Maya. The Bronze Star. The respect of your team. All of it. I couldn't have done it without you. You did the work. You made the choices. I just gave you the opportunity." Maya's eyes glistened. That day in the briefing room, when you could have destroyed me, when you had every right to demand the harshest punishment possible, you chose mercy instead. Yes. Why, after everything I did to you, the harassment, the sabotage, the attempt to end your career, why would you give me a second chance? Elena considered the question. The same question she'd been asked 100 times over the past year. The answer was always the same. Because destroying you wouldn't have fixed anything. It would have just created more destruction, more broken people, more toxic patterns passed on to the next generation. She paused. I didn't want revenge, Maya. I wanted change. Real change. The kind that comes from understanding rather than punishment. Maya was crying now. Quiet tears. Not shame anymore. Gratitude. You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Something worth saving. I spent the last year trying to become that person. And now I understand what you were teaching me. That real strength doesn't require dominance. That real leadership doesn't require destroying others. That the people who hurt us don't define us. She wiped her eyes. Our response to being hurt defines us. Elena nodded slowly. You remember. Every word. Every day. I think about what you said. What you did. How you handled everything we threw at you without breaking. Without becoming what we tried to make you. Maya straightened. Professional again. But different now. I'm going to spend the rest of my career proving you were right about me. Not because I owe you. Because you showed me what I could become. Elena extended her hand. Maya shook it. Take care of your team, Lieutenant. They're lucky to have you. I will. I promise. They stood together for a moment longer. Two women, whose paths had intersected in the worst possible way, now connected by something stronger than shared history. Shared transformation. Shared proof that people could change. If they chose to. Elena left Fort Bragg that evening, drove back toward Washington. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of amber and gold. 1 year since Virginia Beach. 1 year since she'd proved that excellence didn't always announce itself. 1 year since she'd chosen mercy over revenge and changed the course of multiple lives. Her phone buzzed. Message from Jordan Watts. Saw the ceremony coverage. You should be proud. What you built is changing everything. Another message. This one from Master Chief Stone. Watched the whole thing. You did good, Elena. Real good. Another, from a number she didn't recognize. Miss Cross, this is Sarah Chen, Maya Reeves's rehabilitation counselor. I wanted to thank you. In 20 years of military psychology, I've never seen transformation like hers. You gave her something no one else could. Belief. Elena set down the phone, looked at her hands, the burn scars, the evidence of her sacrifice, the marks that everyone had mocked, the wounds that had become her credentials. They'd underestimated her because of those scars, dismissed her, tried to break her. And she'd proved them all wrong, not through revenge, through excellence, not through destruction, through redemption, not through hate, through hope. The car moved through the fading light. Behind her, Fort Bragg disappeared into the distance. Ahead of her, Washington waited with more work, more assessments, more opportunities to prove that the most capable people weren't always the ones you expected. The mission never ended, and Elena Cross wouldn't have it any other way, because somewhere out there right now, someone was being dismissed because of how they looked. Someone was being harassed because they didn't fit comfortable expectations. Someone was being driven out of a career they'd earned because others felt threatened by what they couldn't understand. And Elena would find them, give them the chance they deserved, show them that the things meant to destroy them could become the things that defined them. That was her legacy, not the protocols that bore her name, not the statistics that proved her methods worked. The people changed, transformed, made better because someone believed in them when they had no reason to expect belief. Maya Reeves saving lives in combat. Jordan Watts developing intelligence techniques that protected American interests. Hundreds of others trained under the Cross Protocol, identifying capability that previous systems would have missed. All of them proof that mercy was stronger than revenge, that hope was stronger than cynicism, that the choice to build rather than destroy created ripples that spread far beyond any single moment. Elena Cross touched the burn scars on her arm one final time. The evidence of the explosion that nearly killed her, the marks that everyone had mocked, the wounds that had become her greatest strength. She was the woman nobody saw coming, the guardian who stood at the gate, the operator whose greatest mission wasn't completed in hostile territory, but in the hearts and minds of people who needed to learn that true excellence didn't always look the way you expected. Her legacy was secure. The changes were permanent. The future was brighter for every operator who would come after. And that, more than any medal or commendation or classified operation, was what made every sacrifice worthwhile. The scars they mocked became the proof of her courage. The mercy they didn't deserve became the foundation of their redemption. And the woman they tried to break became the one who changed everything.